Hello there and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Jeremie, joined today for an intimate chat with Paul Gorst, just one-on-one. That one-on-one time that we've been looking for, isn't it, really? Yeah,
we finally got it,
yeah.
How are you? No Theo or Doyley to distract us. Good. Yeah. It feels like after a really busy record-breaking June, we're set for a little bit of quiet time, and certainly in terms of the incomings, but still one or two outgoings to talk about, isn't there? But a little bit of quiet time now before pre-season starts.
It feels like the calm after the storm.
Yeah.
Could there be another storm?
Possibly, yeah.
We'll
maybe there's still 2 months of the window left.
That's exactly it, yeah. Well, plenty to get through. We've got some of your questions, as always. I've got some of them by email, and then I can see that there's some in the chat already, so thank you very much. And thanks for waiting for us. I know we're a little bit later than we planned to be scheduled, but yeah, some technical issues with my laptop.
Is that what you call you?
Yeah.
Struggling to get the brews in?
I didn't struggle, got them in ages ago. Before we get started, a word for our sponsors. Saily, a new eSIM service brought to you by NordVPN. Affordable prices, you can avoid scams, protect your privacy, get 24/7 support, and crucially save on mobile data while you're travelling. You can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans in over 200 destinations with the Saily eSIM, and you'll always have connection when needed. So go to the App Store and download Saily and use code BLOODRED at checkout for our exclusive offer. You get 15% off your first purchase. And for more information, go to the episode description box for further details and click saily.com/bloodred. And some more housekeeping. We are live on YouTube, so drop some questions in the chat. We'll get to them as we go on. They're always really handy, especially this time of year. So please do. Lots and lots of questions coming in already. If you are listening to this on podcasts or anything like that, or watching it back, and you want to get a question into the pod, always happy to take them. joe.rimmer@reachplc.com. Ping them over to me. I've got a little document. I'll throw them on there, and whether it's me, Ryan, Theo, whoever else hosting, they'll ask them on the next pod. If you are listening, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, press the bell to subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast, Apple Podcasts, give us some stars, leave us some reviews. I've been reading them recently. Always really appreciate them. And I know on Spotify you can kind of review each episode, so drop them in there. I always have a little read them, and we always appreciate when you say nice things. So thank you very much, Gorsty. Let's crack on. We'll start straight with the questions because they are flying in. So I'm going to have to sort of go through the comments as you answer the next question and paste them into my document. So we'll get started with one that I was sent from Simon Domingo. Quite an Evertonian name, that. From Simon, but he emailed me earlier this week saying, are Liverpool looking to sign a specialist number 9 based on fact or assumption? It's obvious they need a better option than the current strikers. However, if they can't pull off Isak, could they go for more versatile forwards like Gordon? They have a history of waiting for their first choice. Funny enough, Oren Thompson also asked a question very similar in the chat. He asked, when Núñez leaves, do you think it's Isak or nobody, considering Liverpool in the past have waited if they can't get target number 1? So fire away on that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption, actually. I think that there's no immediate panic from Liverpool in terms of absolutely needing a number 9, even if players like Darwin Núñez do move on. That seems to be it's certainly the way that they're playing the Jurel Kwanzaa stuff. So we're expecting him to be confirmed as a Bayer Leverkusen player today. He's having his medical today in Germany, and Liverpool, the conversations I've had is all centering around the search for the centre back goes on. But if they can't bring someone in this summer, they are relaxed about it. And you can have your opinions on that. I'd certainly be a bit wary of Liverpool heading into the season with only 3 centre backs, and one of them being Joe Gomez. You've obviously got Wataru Endo who can play there as well, but feels a little bit like 2020 when they had all the injuries and ended up with Henderson and Fabinho at the back. You certainly don't want to be doing anything like that again, do you? So, yeah, I think Liverpool at the moment seem to be taking that view with a view to the number 9 as well, and it does seem as though they are shopping in a different market this summer. We know Florian Wirtz is a bit of a historic deal, isn't it? Club record, £116 million coming in, having beaten Manchester City and Bayern Munich to him. Kerkez was certainly their first choice, and Jeremie Frimpong was the first choice to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold if they couldn't get him over the line. So it feels as though Liverpool are being very aggressive and proactive early on. So I think they are looking now at certainly just looking at first choice targets, and they're not really looking to entertain any plan Bs or Cs. So yeah, that would be my reading of the situation at the moment, that they are relaxed about a number 9. They are focusing on outgoings and seeing what can be raised. Núñez, whatever the fee is for him, it looks like Napoli are the front runners at the moment. And then maybe one or two others move on, and then Liverpool can reassess the market. And they'll have, obviously, the transfer kitty top back up. So, yeah, certainly no rush for Liverpool. Like I said, then there's still 2 months left of the market. And taking a little bit of a step back and seeing what develops. And look, things like João Pedro going to Chelsea over Newcastle probably works in their favour to an extent, because it's another big name that Newcastle aren't getting over the line. They're still struggling to get players through, aren't they? Arguing over James Trafford. They can't get Anthony Elanga at the moment. So, maybe Alexander Isak, just pure speculation this, but will he be looking at it thinking back in the Champions League, but we can't get the players who the recruitment team wants?
It could work both ways, though, couldn't it? If you're Newcastle, you could also say, right, well, in that case,
double down on
we cannot sell Isak. If they got Pedro, maybe they might have been more open to it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's no guarantee Liverpool sign anyone between now and the end of the window, and I'm not. I think they probably will, but like you say, we know how they operate, and it seems that they had several targets in the mind that they went out pretty quickly, pretty aggressively, and got. But it certainly wouldn't surprise me if they can't get an Isak, if they can't get a Gay, if they can't get the young centre half that they think is worth spending on. It wouldn't surprise me if they do.
Yeah, I mean, they do like Gay, and he's an England international with the best years of his career ahead of him. I think, 25 next week. But Liverpool aren't really prepared to pay over the odds for him. What they would view as over the odds. We're heading into the last year of his contract. Newcastle failed with about 4 bids last year, didn't they? Of around about 60 million. Yeah. So you'd imagine if they were prepared to bid 4 times, that the player has given assurances that he would like to leave to join Newcastle last year. So it's not too much of a leap to say that if Liverpool were sniffing around, he would like to join Liverpool. Obviously, competition would be greater for a place, but why wouldn't you want to move to Liverpool at the moment? So I think that, reading between the lines, it's a case of what a Palace going to ask for in terms of their asking price. And if Liverpool can sort of barter down a little bit more, then that would become a viable option. But they're not going to be paying 60 million for someone who's in the final 12 months of his contract. I think they might do a little bit of a Real Madrid tactic where they can wait it out and bring him in next summer for nothing.
Yeah. Someone's asked, do you think we'll sign him by the end of the week? I wouldn't say by the end of the week. I think they'll end up, this is a gut feeling more than anything else, I think they'll end up signing Gahey in the end, just because I feel like Palace have sort of signed they're signing. Have they signed the guy from Sporting?
They're after Diamande, aren't they? I don't know if they've officially signed him yet.
Yeah. But if they get that over the line, it feels like he wants to move. Liverpool want to make it happen, and surely there's a compromise for all clubs there.
Yeah.
So I feel like they'll probably get that one over the line, but I think it might be a bit of a waiting game, like you say. I think it force everyone's hand towards the end of the window rather than the start. But striker wise, I just don't see Isak as, I don't know, realistic maybe is not the right word, but I think a lot of things have to happen for Liverpool to get that done. And the big one, and someone's asked this question, is will he push for it? I just can't see that happening.
Don't know his personality, do we?
Yeah.
We've not got a history of anything like this. Doesn't seem, on the surface that he's going to be
reserved, doesn't he?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's going to kick up a fuss, particularly for a club who, idolise him, don't they?
Yeah.
Been there, 3 years now?
And to be fair to Newcastle, they're no longer a club that's 15th from the table. They're a club that is, they won a trophy last season. They're challenging for Champions League places. They've got in the Champions. So they're upwardly mobile, aren't they? So I don't necessarily feel like they've got they're really struggling. They've got a player who will desperately want to get out. I think as well, it depends whether Liverpool show their hand. If Liverpool showed their hand, would he then start pushing? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Newcastle obviously making great strides forward, haven't they? Certainly the last 3-4 years under the new owners, but they're a club who have got designs on qualifying for the Champions League, whereas Liverpool now heading into it. I think there's a real steely determination there within the club that they want to have a real crack at it next season. They were obviously beaten on penalties by the eventual winners, and I know that's something that has rankled with Slot for a while, really. He made reference to it a number of times when we've spoken to him, and almost unprompted.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that he will want to sort of make another fist of next season and negotiate the group stage a little bit differently. You don't have to play your best 11 every single game. So I think Liverpool have really got their eyes set on the Champions League next season. So going from a club that perceives success as just qualifying for it to a team that wants to win it, it's a big step up, isn't it, in ambition? And that is something, Newcastle fans might argue to the blue in the face, but that's something they can't offer that Liverpool can at the moment. A real proper challenge for the Champions League trophy and the Premier League, of course. So let's wait and see. I read a piece last week from Martin Hardy in the Times, obviously very well connected in the North East, that they're looking to offer him a new deal and make him one of the highest earners at £150,000 a week, which Liverpool would be able to improve without blinking, really. We know Liverpool one of the highest wage bills in the Premier League, but I'm sure they'll be able to find more room for a player like that. And particularly if someone like Darwin Núñez leaves, who is probably on around that anyway. So, could be one in, one out on that score in terms of the wage bill. It's just a case of the asking price. What would that be? Newcastle under no real pressure to sell unless they're really struggling to get deals over the line and feel that could arm them a little bit more in the transfer market. We'll see. But yeah, certainly it's the one that Liverpool fans want, but I think Liverpool are going to take a little step back and see what happens. Yeah,
they don't always go with the flow, do they? But we know that there's an interview in the Times this weekend from Ian Graham, who since leaving Liverpool and writing his book has been interviewed by a fair few outlets, including ourselves. But he was talking about they wanted to buy Isak in 2022, and that didn't happen because Klopp wanted Núñez. So there's a desire there from the club. We know historically they liked him, and he probably lines up in terms of their data-led approach, doesn't he? Yeah, well, I mean that's quite encouraging, really, for Liverpool supporters now to read. It won't just be as sort of, but he's had a good season in the Premier League or a good couple of years, let's go and try and bring him in. I think he has proven that he is one of the best around in the Premier League, but the fact that Liverpool tracked him for a number of years, dating back to his Sociedad days when I think it was La Liga Young Player of the Year when he moved to Newcastle, and 63 million, which was around what was paid for Núñez at the time. Obviously, Liverpool had the huge weight of add-ons on top of that as well. So, I mean, you could say objectively that's probably a deal that pivoted in the wrong direction in hindsight. It's easy to say that now, but it does sort of at least back up the idea that all the research dating back years has been done on Isak, and they've obviously kept tabs on him while he's been at Newcastle. Yeah, and you've spoken to people in the past that say that the Premier League experience adds another layer, doesn't it, to Liverpool's what they look for in a transfer. So the fact that he's come in and done it very well in the Premier League will only add to that, won't it? Oh yeah, 100%. Only Salah scored more than him, didn't he, last season? Was it 23 Premier League goals? Gets them into the top four. Wins them the cup, which was a famous day for Newcastle in what was it, March. A bad one for Liverpool that they had to sort of take the medicine on it. But yeah, every time Isak plays against Liverpool, he has a really good game, doesn't he? The goal he scored at St James's Park was one of the goals of the season. I think the power that he hit that with just looks like he's got it all, doesn't he? And I think if there is to be some movements in the front line with Liverpool this summer, Darwin Núñez, we are expecting to leave at some stage, aren't we? Federico Chiesa is still one for me. I think he might go back to Italy quietly. What did Liverpool get for him in terms of a fee? His stock is still high, obviously, in Serie A. Can all that be reinvested into a sort of primary target? Yeah, I mean, there's lots of questions coming in, but do you think it depends? I still feel like there's a chance Luis Diaz could go this summer. I think a proper bid for him could turn Liverpool's heads. And do you think it depends who leaves and when on what they follow up with the target? I mean, lots of questions about Anthony Gordon. Would they go back for him? I don't necessarily think that they would, because it felt like one that sort of suited everyone last summer, didn't it? That was the sort of opportunistic thing, wasn't it, that Richard Hughes spoke about. Newcastle in dire straits, PSR-wise, looking to do a bit of a unusual swap style deal without it being, very much an official swap. Joe Gomez drew onto Kwanzaa to begin with, didn't he? And then Joe Gomez, and for whatever reason that didn't work out. There was talk of his medical being booked in Leipzig at the time, wasn't it, when he was with England with the Euros? But I don't know now. I think maybe that ship might have sailed. Yeah. But you're right about Diaz. Liverpool very relaxed about this one, not sort of
even privately entertaining the idea that they might sell him. But clearly at Barcelona are making, quiet advances for him. They might have had a little bit of a nod that they can get him. I think Liverpool disputes the fact that Barcelona can pay for him.
Yeah.
I think, Liverpool sort of looking at that Bruno Fernandes fee from Al Hilal. They were looking to pay 100 million, and I think Liverpool would look at that as more in line with Diaz's value than Barcelona trying to get him on the cheap.
Yeah, and that's why I think if Saudi did materialise, you wonder whether he'd stay put, because Liverpool could get the type of fee. And a few people are asking, would you then see Liverpool go for a versatile forward? It's the Beardo, great name. Has asked if like a Fofana type player, and that kind of strikes me as something Liverpool might do.
Maybe,
not not Fofana specifically, but that type of player.
Yeah, maybe. And we've seen Diaz last season rather, became a bit of a number 9, didn't he, for most of the, or at least half of the season, while Jota was out and Núñez was never fully trusted. So, yeah, I mean, if Diaz was to go, I still think a few things need to fall in place for that to happen. But there was an interesting report last week, wasn't there, out of Colombia from, was it Pipe Sierra, who's very well connected with the sort of Diaz camp, that the player is quite unhappy at his bottom line, which has never really gone away, has it? That sort of subplot. He's one of the lowest paid, high profile players in the Liverpool squad, if you can call him that. So I think he has been desperate to sign a new contract and basically earn a bit more money, which I suppose, going off his performances last season, I don't know if you agree with this, but he's probably earned it. But we know that Liverpool, a new contract isn't just down to, a reward for your current form. There's a lot of factors that go into it now: age, current length of contract, and all that sort of stuff. And Liverpool have relaxed him being a relatively low earner.
That's what makes me feel like they would be open to selling him, because if you're not going to give him a new contract, you just see it feels like there's some players that are untouchable, aren't they? And there's some players that are just that level below where he's really good. He will play every week. He is a big part of what they do, but they'll always feel like they could sell him and buy a player like an Anthony Gordon that perhaps is a bit younger, still has a high ceiling, and could still contribute every week. And that's where I'm at with Diaz. Feel like Liverpool will, maybe if they get to the end of the window, they might revisit the contract situation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's got 2 years left, hasn't he, at the moment? He's 28. So if Liverpool were to hand him now what, 3-year extension, maybe take him into his 30s. I just couldn't see it. I see more of a world where they sort of say, well, go and prove that you are worthy of a new contract on top of what you've already just done. I think he had a really good season, to be fair, but get to 12 months' time and we'll see if he's still at this level, and then there might be some serious talks about trying to improve that bottom line. And I think Liverpool are in a relatively relaxed position and they're comfortable where they find themselves on this one. And might be a bit harsh on Diaz, because he probably does deserve a little bit of a bump based on the performances that he's turned in. We're not really too privy to what he does earn, but that's certainly the way Liverpool operate now with the Michael Edwards back with his hand on the tiller, as you say. Yeah.
Right, loads and loads of questions, and we may jump around a little bit now, and we probably will come back to Isak, Diaz, and some of the striker things. But how about Alvarez? A few people asking about Julian Alvarez. I've not heard much on that one. It feels like one that maybe it would make sense in some regards, but I don't necessarily think it's an active one. Do you?
No. Not too sure how active it's been really, but no doubt he's a brilliant player. He's a big star. He's let's go Madrid, and he was a huge part of what Manchester City achieved as well. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of plates being spun at the moment in Liverpool's forward department. There's the Diaz thing bubbling away. Chiesa's, despite what Slot said the other week, doesn't really feel like he might stay for the season ahead, and obviously Núñez is the big one. So
strangely, it's like the most unstable department.
They're
both really well stocked and
could find themselves in need of two more. Yeah. So you've got obviously Núñez is one, Chiesa 2, and then Diaz 3. I think in terms of who might leave, in that order. Don't think they're going to get rid of all 3. I think 2 could leave, and then you sort of, it's up to Slot and Hughes, I guess, in terms of how they how they reinvest. They could get, say they were to sell Chiesa back to Italy, they could probably double the money, couldn't they, in terms of what they bought him for. So you're looking at maybe 20 million-ish. Nunes, still waiting to see what Napoli come to the table with that, but, maybe 50, 60.
Yeah.
So that's a decent amount to reinvest.
And they probably don't feel they need that many. I mean, they've just bought another forward or someone that can certainly play in forward positions in Wirtz. Frimpong can operate on the right. Then you've got, I mean, they barely used Kerkez last season.
Yeah.
And Jota missed a huge chunk of it through injury. So, and Nunes had injuries, didn't he, last season a little bit. So it's not as if, I mean, Diaz and Salah were fit most of the season, as was Gakpo. And mind you, Gakpo had a couple of months out.
So he got injured in the derby, didn't he? And he wasn't, I think he was out for about a month, but never really looked the same after that.
Yeah, so that they did manage to get through last season with a fair few amount of injuries in the forward line and never look really like they were going to struggle in that department. So they probably look at it and think, well, we could lose a couple of forwards and not buy anyone. Whether you agree with that or not is your opinion, but I think they'll probably be relaxed about that because they barely use Chiesa.
I think it's different this summer in terms of it being Slot as opposed to Klopp. Like, we know if it was Klopp, you could say, oh, well, he'll want to leave a bit of a pathway clear for Ben Doak to kick on, or maybe Rio and Gamoa on the other flank. But Slot seems very much two senior players for every position, doesn't he? Which is why they ended up getting 6 forwards across the, they play 3 up front, so they need 6 for that position.
Yeah.
So, theoretically, if Chiesa leaves, they should be looking at some sort of replacement. Now, whether the goalposts move on that strategy, we'll see. But I certainly think Nunes will move on. Chiesa more than likely. If despite what Slot said recently, I think that might have just been a little bit. We didn't want to make it known that the club were willing to listen to offers, because that's when you get offers that are below what you might reasonably want for your players. So I think those two are the most likely. Diaz, still think he'll stay unless Barcelona somehow get a windfall from somewhere. Doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon, does it? Unless the Saudi interest, properly does emerge. But at the moment, there's been nothing. So, Nunes to go, Chiesa to go, probably, I think. And then let's see what they can do in terms of rejigging their options. Did he just bring in? Did he go big time for Isak, or did he look to do maybe a couple of smaller, more, less Wirtz and more sort of Diaz Gakpo style deals? If you see what I mean.
Red says, in a parallel universe, Liverpool signed the centre midfielder and right wing of the European under-21 champions, and we'd say that the spine of our team for the next decade. Instead, we're selling them all. Isn't that weird? I mean, there's no guarantee that Elliott will leave. Morton more likely, but it makes a good point, doesn't it? It's interesting.
Yeah. To a point. I mean, I think it's fair enough to say that Tyler Morton, I think he deserves his move.
He's a good player, Tyler Morton. I've got this thing with Tyler Morton where I can't really understand how he's still at Liverpool. I know obviously last summer there was some talk of Leverkusen, wasn't there? But every time I've seen him, he's really classy on the ball, good forward passer. Yeah, slightly surprised. He had a really good season, didn't he?
Yeah, so we know that Liverpool sort of look at the similar types of transfers that have happened recently in the markets, haven't they, when they're looking to sell the players. And I think Adam Wharton going from Blackburn to Palace was a big one for that. Was he 20-something million, 22 million, something like that? Yeah. I think Liverpool were looking for something similar, which they feel that Tyler Morton was worth. And, like red says there.
Might be missing a red there.
Yeah. He's just played centre midfield for the European Championship winners, and with
set up the winner.
Yeah, if France had won that competition, or Germany, you'd be looking at their centre mid's good. Where is he going to go?
We were talking about the last Euros, weren't we? And it was all the centre mids of Germany and France.
Kefren Turam and Vega was it at Celta Vigo, and a couple of others. Gravenberch was obviously the one who signed that summer. So it's a fair point, and I think that's maybe why Tyler Morton is still a Liverpool player, because Liverpool have been relaxed and they're looking for that transfer fee that they feel is in line with his value, whereas the buying club thinks, well, this lad's not going to get anywhere near their first team. We can try and squeeze a few million out of them, and that is why Nat Phillips essentially was a Liverpool player for a lot longer than he should have been. Occasionally Liverpool do relent with Kelleher. They did that this summer, having not done it last summer. That's why Kelleher stayed, because Liverpool were adamant that he had a certain price tag, and unless it was met, he was going to stay. So I think that is why we are still seeing Morton at Liverpool. He obviously gets the shoulder injury, doesn't he, which comes at an awkward time, because that rules him out of a January move, I think. But surely he'll move on this summer and just sort of top up that outgoings kitty.
And Elliott, a few people mentioned Elliott in the comments. Yeah, I mean, again, doesn't feel like there's a guarantee, does it?
No, I think he's got a bit of... I wrote a piece about him yesterday. I think he's got a bit of thinking time to do now. Does he want to stay at the club, try and force his way in? Maybe he'll feature more in Champions League games when there is a bit more rotation. And I think that's one of the things Slot has learned generally, is to rotate a little bit more. It doesn't have to be 6 or 7 every game, but maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I think Elliott, Liverpool have got it in a really healthy position with their midfield at the moment. With I think I've said this before. There's about like Jones, Gravenberch, and McAllister going into the 2 there, and those the sort of specialist destroyer who can play centre back when needed, and then Wirtz in the number 10 with Elliott sort of giving him a bit of competition for it. That would be the way to go. But it's up to Harvey, and he spoke, didn't he, on England duty about not wanting to waste years of his career, and I think that was quite telling, that quote. So
I'd love to see him stick it out for one more year.
He's only 22. I mean, he's only just turned 22 as well in April, so I get his eagerness to push on and play every week, but he's at his boyhood club, and I know how much it would mean to him to play a bit more at Liverpool, and it's up to him essentially, I guess. Liverpool won't be short of suitors if he does make it known that he would like to have a little fresh challenge somewhere else. But,
again, he strikes me as one of those players though where Liverpool's expectation of a fee and buying clubs' expectation of a fee might be quite far apart, because you and I sit here now as people who've watched Elliott as he's grown up at Liverpool over the last few years. I personally wouldn't be accepting any less than 50 for him. I think that's the market now for those types of players. He's 22. He's got great experience. He's supremely talented. Yeah, he can't get into Liverpool's team, but there aren't many players in the world that can. But to me, he's a level down. Teams like Tottenham, you would think he would walk into their team. So to me, he's that 50 million would be my ballpark figure for him, because you think, well, he's got such an upside. Why would you sell for less?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But
if you're a buying club, I can't see them paying that sort.
Yeah, and also as well, you need more than just 11 good players. I think we saw last season Slot didn't use the full remit of the squad, did he? And Elliott was a sort of a victim of that at times.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to use more than 14, 15 players. Yeah. So no bad thing having young versatile players around to sort of take the workload at times. And he's just won the player of the tournament there in the under 21s, and like the comment says, if he wasn't a Liverpool player, you'd be looking at him and thinking, he'd be a really good player for the coming years. So Liverpool got him in obviously when he was 16, wasn't he? And he has become a man at Liverpool with a year on loan at Blackburn, and he's played only 150 times for Liverpool, and that's having broken his ankle, which left him out for like 5 months, and having a season on loan at Blackburn. So to play that much at such a young age at a club like Liverpool shows you how good he is and how much he was trusted by Jurgen Klopp, certainly. So yeah, I hope he gives it another year, and I think he'd be a good understudy for Wirtz, and he would be a good player to come in at certain times when rotation inevitably happens.
Yeah, a few people are saying about buyback clauses and stuff. If Elliott does go, I'd be littering that deal with several different clauses, from buybacks to sell-ons to everything else besides, because who knows where the future will take him, because he's got huge potential. But yeah, I mean, a couple of people asking whether his price tag would have gone up after that Euro performance, and I think it
won't have it, will it?
It won't have it, and I would have thought there'd be a queue of clubs trying to prize him out of Liverpool, because he's got such good quality. So yeah, I do think he's one of those players who nowadays is in a weird position. When I was growing up, number 10s were like every good club had a good number 10, didn't they? Whereas I think nowadays, unless they're like the absolute best, you don't see clubs using that type of traditional number 10. So that's why I think sometimes he's found it hard to get at Liverpool, hasn't he? Because he's played on the right of the three, in midfield or up front, and neither of them fully suits him.
Yeah. I mean, Klopp sort of changed them. They need to be a bit of a right-sided midfielder, and I remember being quite surprised when that change happened. Was it the 21-22 season? Starts the first few games on the right, and big show of faith from Klopp, really, and he gets the horrendous injury at Leeds, and then I think by the time he comes back, Liverpool are going for all 4 trophies. You can't really find game time for him because you come back off an injury, and he can play on the right of the front three, can't he? I think he could be a viable Salah option at times next season. We know Liverpool are looking to maybe play Frimpong there when the time comes, but I just think he's quality player wherever he's going to play. Maybe doesn't have the physicality to play deeper, but that's fine. He can play a bit further forward. He can be, a little bit of a plug-in play, Wirtz alternative at times. And I'd love to see him stay. I've given another year. Should, in theory, play more if there is more rotation. And I just wouldn't like to see him leave. It just feels like that'll leave Liverpool short, and I don't necessarily feel like they go and bring in an equivalent player for him either.
Definitely not. Right, Benny MG is desperate to know whether Liverpool are in for Hato from Ajax. I know he's someone they've monitored, isn't he? But I think a move. I don't know whether a move is something that's going to happen.
So he's sort of left-sided, isn't he? And I think Liverpool have got very clear sort of plans for what the fullbacks are going to look like with Kerkez and Frimpong. Very quick, going to stretch the play, going to get really high up the pitch, and Hato a little bit more of a sort of left-sided centre-back who can play a little bit as a defensive fullback, if you know what I mean.
Do you think if Gomez left, maybe someone that they'd start looking at? I mean, they've made no bones about the fact that they're looking at young centre-halves. So they are looking in that position, but you would have thought that they might have made a move by now if that was the case.
That's fair, yeah. Obviously, we know that they were looking at Dean Huijsen, weren't they? And last year, Lenny Yoro, and going back maybe to a lesser extent, Levi Colwill. So this sort of young centre-back search is now in its third summer. So you're right. I think if Hato did tick all the boxes, he would have been someone that they might have already moved for. So, could be something else holding that back, for whatever reason. They obviously will have an army of data on him. Yeah. I mean, I can't say I've seen too much of him, but he seems someone who is versatile, who can play full-back and centre-back. But I think now at the moment we have got a bit of a bit of an outline of what Slot is looking for with the full-backs. Kerkez and Frimpong, very attacking, very aggressive, pacey full-backs.
Yeah. Carl Brooks asks, any substance to the Gabriel Shuttler rumour, the young lad from Blackpool?
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone about this last week, and it was put to me that he was someone who they did look at and think is a talented young player, but he's not going to be coming in for Liverpool this summer. There was no medical book, nothing like that. So just a young player who's got a good future by all accounts. I think Liverpool think he's going to go to another Premier League club this summer. I think he's been linked to Fulham. But yeah, it was put to me last week that he won't be coming to Liverpool.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything about him at the time. It was just one of those names that looked into. He actually made his Blackpool debut against Liverpool in the EFL Trophy.
Yeah,
16 years of age. Steve Bruce spoken about, what a young player, what a young talent he is, and sort of venting his frustrations with how the bigger boys, as he called it, come along and just sort of take these younger players because they can at a certain point. But yeah, it doesn't look like he's going to be coming to Liverpool off conversations I had last week.
A few more questions then. It's the Beardo has asked, has the Van Bronckhorst appointment been confirmed yet? I don't think it has.
No.
What do you make of it? I mean, it seems like a very experienced coach. He's obviously done some management. Yeah. Obviously Dutch, so the contacts are there. It feels
yeah,
right.
big name in Holland. So he will be, an appointment the likes of Gravenberch and Van Dijk will obviously approve of, because it's a big name coming in from the football at their homeland, isn't it? Obviously took Rangers to the Europa League final. Managed with Feyenoord as well. He was at Besiktas, and I think he's done a little stint in China. But yeah, he's an experienced coach with a big name, coming to the club. But what that's going to entail day to day, I'm not too sure.
I always have this thing with people. I always remember John Achterberg. I'd always argue with someone that you cannot ever judge coaches because you don't see what they do day to day. They could be brilliant. They could be. Pep Lijnders, obviously a really talented coach, hasn't really translated into management. There are different skill sets. You can judge managers, but coaching is hard to judge. So he could be great. I don't know, but I always had that with John Achterberg, where I remember there was like people really questioning his coaching ability before Alisson came in because he'd played for Tranmere, and you thought it's a bit nonsense. That if Klopp thinks he's a good coach and the players think he's a good coach, then why?
Yeah, you basically just didn't have goalkeepers who were good enough.
As soon as they had the goalkeepers good enough, it never ever reared its head again. So it's an interesting appointment.
He'll command respect, won't he? He'll come in. He's a big name. Yeah. Obviously got, like we say, senior manager experience. So he is someone who will command respect around the place. But no, it hasn't been confirmed yet. And I'm not even sure Liverpool will confirm it. It might be a case of they go back to pre-season next week and you just see him alongside the rest of them, Aaron Briggs and Sipka Hulshaf, whose name I'm still sort of getting to grips with in terms of the pronunciation. But it's been it's an entirely new backroom team, isn't it? It's not like Slot has just brought in the entire team from Feyenoord last summer. He brought in Sipka with him. He brings in Hulshaf. He brings in Fabian Otter and Ruben Peters, and he sort of pieced it together meticulously and, replaced Heitinger with another big name from Holland.
Yeah. Right, a few more questions. Fletcher had emailed me. He said, "Hey guys, big fan of the podcast and listening for years from New York. It's a bit of a random one, this, so I'm just throwing it at you. My question revolves around Jurgen Klopp's exit and the finances behind it. I heard someone say in the last podcast that Liverpool operated at a £9 million loss." That
was me. I got that wrong, yeah. Yeah. Right, so I think it was a pre-tax loss of around about 54 million.
Yeah.
I think the 9 million was what Klopp and his staff were paid off.
Well, that's what he's asking. He's saying if Jurgen voluntarily terminated his contract early, why did the club pay him out as if he was sacked? Seems odd to me.
Because of what he'd given to the club, essentially, over the best part of a decade. Liverpool just felt it was the right thing to do with him and his staff.
I think it would have been a mutual consent job, wouldn't it, rather than not sacking, not quitting.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's an element of, I mean, I don't know the details, but I'm sure they'd have come to an agreement. Maybe he wouldn't got as much as if he was sacked, as much as he would have done if he was sacked.
We don't know the specifics of the numbers, but it was very much a cordial sort of send off, wasn't it? And Klopp is very close to certainly Mike Gordon, Tom Werner, and obviously John W. Henry within the FSG ranks. So it was all handled, very very amicably, and they felt it was right to give Klopp the sort of the send off. And I don't know how they turned it. Some of these phrases, don't you, at times, like a golden handshake and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think the club and the owners just felt it was the right thing to do to pay him out in full, and his staff as well.
Yeah. Ronan McCarran has emailed. He said, "I'm reading that the club will likely look to recruit further after player sales. Two things. While it's great to watch Liverpool flex their financial muscles early, we now have to deal with the frustration of clubs trying to string out and leverage a bargain, like Napoli, fully aware of the pressure it exerts on Liverpool, the player and the management through pre-season." That's his first question. And then looking at the striker choices, despite a decent goal return, Isak has a notable injury record. If Liverpool were to break their transfer record to help Newcastle rebuild and sidestep PSR, would we not be risking a repeat of Jota Mark II over the duration of what likely be a 5-year contract? I'm in the Osman camp. So the first one, I just think that's the price of doing business, isn't it? Liverpool wanted to get those deals done early, and now they will have to barter a bit with clubs who are coming to buy their players.
Yeah, that's just how it works, isn't it? I think Liverpool have got a nice little balance in terms of being really direct and proactive. And I remember Slot saying just after he'd won the league that the fact that you've won the league so early does allow you to plan further ahead for the summer transfer window with Richard Hughes. And obviously plans were being put in place behind the scenes, but it allows them to focus a little bit more intently, certainly from Slot's perspective. And how much of that has allowed them to sort of steal a march on Florian Wirtz, I'm not sure, but certainly won't have hurt, being able to sort of cast a glance a little bit further down the road rather than being, stuck in the sort of rabbit hole of fix you have to win titles. So that helped. And I think, you look at it now, before the end of June, they've obviously brought in Wirtz, Frimpong and Kerkez. Mamardashvili will arrive as well. That was obviously agreed last year. So they are now just able to sort of take a step back for a bit and see how things develop, whilst focusing on getting players out the door, which is now the primary focus. So I think as a way of operating, this is the way to do it. You wouldn't want them sort of shedding players left and right and then maybe doing what Newcastle are doing at the moment and experiencing problems in bringing players in. Because then you risk not necessarily starting the season with an undercooked squad or, an understaffed squad, but more, players not arriving and having the full benefits of a pre-season, which I think is going to be crucial for the likes of Wirtz and Kerkez and Frimpong. As we saw last summer, the difference it made for someone like Salah coming in and just having that full pre-season. He hit the ground running, didn't he, in the Premier League, and it's just such a big thing that managers always talk about. So I think Liverpool have absolutely done it the right way around.
Yeah. In terms of Isak's injury record, just having a look at it now, I don't necessarily think it's quite as bad as people.
Is it one of those things that
I think it's a bit of a misnomer because 2 seasons ago he did have a fairly big injury. He was out from September to January with, I think, a groin problem.
Newcastle had several injuries around that time, I remember,
last season, he only really missed. He broke his toe early in the season and missed about a month, which, but, I think broken toe is one of those injuries where you can't
legislate for that.
Can't legislate for it. Otherwise, he had 2 injuries that kept him out 9 days. This is according to Transfer Market. I remember there was lots to talk about him having injuries, wasn't there? At the time, throughout last season, I remember going into the League Cup final. There was talk, but he always seemed to be fit. And I don't know whether
he missed the game at Anfield because he was basically unfit, wasn't he? And I don't know how much of that was Eddie Howe basically trying to leverage the final. And there was talk of that after Newcastle had won. But he missed the Anfield game. He was there though. He walked through the mix zone. Someone asked him something in Swedish. I'm not sure what it was. Don't think it was are you joining Liverpool? But I mean, I guess if Liverpool do sort of go all in on Isak this summer, they will be convinced that they can resolve any perceived injury issues that he's got. That was one of the big things of bringing Slot in, wasn't it? It was one of the things Tom Werner spoke about last week in terms of not having all the injuries which plagued them in Klopp's last season. So it certainly paid off. Liverpool didn't get too. Obviously, they had 1 or 2 injuries, but it wasn't anywhere near the level of the previous season, was it? And however they do that, the tactical things to keep players fit and fresher, obviously that's why they earn the money. But if Liverpool do eventually go in for Isak this summer, and we're not totally sure that they will, but if they do, I'd be convinced that they feel that they can keep him fit.
Yeah, certainly. I'm just looking now, comparing Isak to Jota, and then just comparing alongside Salah, because obviously Salah just doesn't seem to have many injuries, touch wood. He doesn't next season. But Salah, according to this, has never had an injury period of more than 30 days. 29 days is the longest he's had.
Had the hamstring last year?
Which was, no, that was at Roma.
Okay.
Yeah, the hamstring was 26 days from January to February. He did miss 8 games during that time because it was a busy period. Whereas Jota's injury spells are more often longer, so 54 days, 52 days, 117 days, 32 days.
117 days, what was that for?
85 days. That was the calf injury in 2022-23.
So missed the World Cup for that.
He has had fairly lengthy, whereas Isak, I think it does seem to get quite a lot of injuries, but they seem to be shorter, 5 days, 4 days.
Ones,
He does have the odd month out here and there, and he did have a bad season in 23-24. 22-23, he had 1 big injury and then a couple of months out. So I think he does get them. But like you say, it seems like Liverpool will be confident they can keep him fit.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, they were unfortunate with Jota, weren't they, in the injury that he gets, but it's a very Jota-esque injury where someone just falls on him and then he goes like 4 months between Premier League starts, which incredible, really, for your first choice number 9 to miss that much football and you still cancer to the league by 10 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly for me now, I think this idea of Jota being I've absolutely no problem with him being a squad player. I think he's still got a useful part to play. But I think Liverpool needs to move away from him being the leader of the line, because his fitness record, like you've just pointed out there, is more than questionable, isn't it? It's awful at times, and you can't be having that where you're having to sort of shift. Luis Diaz can play there, but you need someone, don't you, who's going to play there and stay fit and lead the line.
I know Diaz had a couple of big injuries, but in general, he doesn't seem to pick up as many of the smaller ones, does he? And I suppose for Isak, I suppose that the worry is if he picks up smaller ones, you tend to miss more games when you play for Liverpool, because they play in more competitions more often, don't they, than perhaps, I know Newcastle have been in the Champions League recently, but than perhaps you do when you're at Newcastle or Real Sociedad or something like that. So, yeah, I do think it's a slight concern, but I think if Liverpool are to commit the money, they will be confident.
I think this is one of the things now that you can absolutely trust with Liverpool is so exhaustive in the sort of, when they do a deal at that size, no stone gets left unturned, does it, from the players, character references, as injury history, as data, as sort of the old school traditional scouting metrics of just watching a player over a prolonged period of time, the contract situation of his current club, everything is very much, Liverpool have got all the details that they need in front of them to pursue a deal. And at times they have been accused of being a little bit sort of too risk averse and a little bit scared to roll the dice at times. But, there's not a whole lot of transfer mistakes over the last decade, is there really?
It'd be interesting how far this show of ambition goes this summer. It's already a huge statement, and you can't argue with that. The ambition to go out and get a player like Wirtz, one of the best young players on the continent, really well thought of, chased by a couple of the biggest clubs alongside Liverpool. So that is a hugely ambitious, obviously it could be a British record, Liverpool's record. It's a hugely ambitious move. Whether that goes into another player like an Isak, well, that would be really saying something. But there does seem to be the desire at Liverpool, doesn't there, to, like you said earlier, to make sure that this isn't just a one and done league season, to build on it, to make it more than that. Slot seems uber ambitious, doesn't he? Ruthless in his ambition, really. And I think they're following that a little bit.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but coming off the back of winning the title in 2020, I think Liverpool and the owners knew that they were facing up to a year of behind closed doors games. So it's a year of no match day revenue, which is maybe like 90 million, 90 to 100 million, something like that. So without that, I think they were a little bit sort of circumspect and a little bit cautious over what they did. And they obviously bring in Thiago, who's a long-standing target. They do Jota and Tsimikas, and that's pretty much it. And, I can't remember who they sold that summer, but I think they would have recouped a fair whack of what was around about 70 million. But this one seems very much less inhibited. They know that Liverpool are ready to push on now. They've got the Adidas deal coming in, the pre-season tour of Hong Kong and Japan, which is going to be, particularly lucrative for the pre-season tour. Anfield Road is sort of washing its own face now, isn't it? There's just a lot going on at the moment, which seems that it's contributing towards this sort of show of ambition, and it's just a really exciting time to be, certainly for our viewers, the supporters, the likes of us covering it, following it, and there's still more to come, I'm sure. So yeah, it's really exciting, I think, at the moment.
We'll wrap it up. Just a couple of more observations from the comments. Someone said, how much influence does Slot have on transfers? I think he finally works very closely with Richard Hughes, doesn't he? And I don't think there'll be anyone there that Slot doesn't want. He might not be pulling every string, but he certainly will be hugely influential. Someone's asked about Kerkez. It just doesn't feel like one Liverpool have been there, does it?
No.
So unless that comes out the blue, can't see that. And I just want to wrap up with one final question, which is slightly off topic, but I do want to answer it. Wilson9 said, love the podcast. Will there be a review of your Echo site next season? It's well documented how many adverts it has and just poor user experience. Big shame as the content is great from you guys. Wilson, thanks for that comment. Frustration of all of ours is the website and the adverts. It's just the price of doing business for us in terms of, the content is free, isn't it, online? The only thing I could say is download the app.
Yeah, it can't speak highly enough of the app.
The
Quick,
LFC app.
clean, no ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good use, and you can listen to the pods there as well. So
LFC Echo app in the App Store. Nice little red and yellow logo, isn't it? And you can read all our content on there ad free
and listen to the pods as well. So right. Well, thank you very much for all your questions, all your comments, all your observations. Great feedback there. So thank you. We'll be back on. I'm going to
pushing for Thursday.
Might push for Thursday again. Ian's nodding. Paul's
early doors Thursday.
Yeah. 11 o'clock on Thursday. I don't see why not. So look out for us at 11 o'clock on Thursday. We're back live on YouTube. Get your questions in the meantime. If you want to send me an email, joe.rim@reachplc.com. Happy to answer your questions there. Anything else coming up in that we need to know about? Liverpool.com, they doing a pod? Hopefully this week as well. You can look out for that on the Blood Red channels. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a great week. Gorsty, thank you. And ta-ra.